Good afternoon, everyone. Depending on what time zone you're in, some people might even be good morning. My name is Sean McGill. I'm a research physical scientist with the Coastal and Hydraulics Lab. I'm the PI of the Sediment Budget Analysis System. And today's technical discussion is going to be on a work effort that Tanya briefly mentioned, where we've been looking at incorporating new capabilities for the Sediment Budget Analysis System to be able to pull in some of our other use-based tool results and try to make SBAS quicker and easier to use for our end users. So going through this, I'll talk introductions. As Sonny said, this is a big team. We have a lot of revolving people, got a lot of great alumni, so you see them on the line. We'll talk sediment budgets and the sediment budget equation. So this will provide some background information if this is a new topic for you. If this is something you're familiar with, just go ahead, let your eyes glaze over, and we'll pull you back in towards the end. After that, we'll kind of give a brief history of SBAS as a whole. By giving that history of SBAS and where it's been, we can kind of see some of the incremental steps that we've made throughout not just this effort, but some of the previous efforts to get to where we are, and how it's kind of laying the foundation to keep pushing SBAS into the future. And the last bit, we'll focus on our efforts this FY, as well as the brief portion last FY, to take our latest iteration of SBAS, which was SBAS 2020, and make that push to get into what will be our newest version of SBAS, which we'll call SBAS 2025. So as I said, this is a very large team. I've included the current team that's been helping out this FY, but there's many more that have helped out on previous FYs. There are many members on this team that are on reimbursables, working with many district officials, or they have their own standalone R&D efforts. So there's tons of other people that are not listed on this, but everyone that has played a role has been key to getting SBAS to where it is today. So dive into that background information for those of you that are unaware of sediment budget. So everyone hears the word budget, and they think money, especially with everything going on right now. Not quite what a sediment budget is. We're talking about our sediment in the system, how much sediment is in the system, where it's coming from, where it's going from, where we have too much sediment, too little sediment. Depending on the location, that could be a good and or bad thing. Our budgets are going to consist of both littoral cells or cells within our inlets and fluxes. So our cells are going to be our general area of the sediment that we're considering, and then the fluxes are just that sediment that's going between them. What's nice about sediment budgets is they provide both a conceptual, a qualitative, and even a quantitative model for our sediment transports in our region of interest. These are great from a regional sediment management perspective. If you want to take a sediment budget that shows where your entire district, a local city, partner, states, whatever range you're looking at, which we'll get to in a second, and we can see where our sediment's going, where we have our erosional hotspots, and we can use that for some of our future O&M decisions or some of our federal projects. Can we find areas where we're having too much sediment? Perhaps we have a shoal, one of our inlets that's causing us issues, but just up the beach, we have a very erosive hotspot. We can look at our sediment budgets and say, hey, we have about equal or a little bit of sediment that could equal out those areas, and we can go ahead, dredge, and then place some of the sediment on the beach. Beneficially use that material, try and push us to that 70% by 2030 goal. So these are very important. They're very aesthetically pleasing. You can put one of these up on a meeting with your local stakeholders, and you can have green and red. Hey, here's green, here's your good areas, here's your red, here's your bad areas. And then everyone in that room is going to understand, okay, that's where the problem is, this is where our good area is. So really great for communicating with clients, sponsors, and partners who might not be familiar. So we're talking sediment, the sediment budgets. There's an equation that all this is based off of, and it's called the sediment budget equation. And it's just a simple accounting of how much sediment is going into our cell and how much is going out of the cell. So with our, you're going to slowly see all these pop up on the screen. We're going to talk about our sources first, so where all of our sand is coming into our cells. This is natural, of course. I do want to express that. We're not talking about any anthropogenic influences yet. We'll get to that in a second. But this is going to be any of our longshore transport going into the cell, any sediment that's being brought onto the shore, If we're having any erosion from our sediment sources, such as bluffs up in the Great Lakes, or more riverine influences, depositing sediments, I think, Mississippi River or some of our Columbia River, all these larger rivers that end up depositing sediment into our system. At the same time they're having all the sediment going into our cells, we're having the sediment leave the cells as well. So just as sediment's being transported in, it's being transported out through long-shore transport. We may have aeolian processes that blow it completely out of the cell. We might have it transported offshore as well if we have, a very large storm compared to typical climate conditions. And then within the cell, we're also going to consider our natural erosion and accretion of the cell, our delta V, and then our anthropogenic influences, as I said. So any of our beach fills, any of our placements, we're going to be considering that. And then any of our removals as well, dredging. That's going to be key mainly when we're talking about our littoral cells that occur in our inlets. Take that all together, and we have this very simple, easy-to-use equation right here. And all we're going to do is we're going to take the sum of all of our sediment sources, the sum of all of our sediment sinks, and we're going to subtract that with our change in the volume, natural occurring volume, of course, add in our placement amounts, and then remove any dredging that occurs. Two things I do want to highlight real quick. You should be working with annualized amounts for this. So we're going to be looking at larger data sets, 10, 15 years, average that down to 1 year to get an average. But the residual right there, it says 0 for a balanced cell. When we're saying a balanced cell, all we are talking about is we account for all of our sediment in the system. You can have a balanced cell for an erosional hotspot. You could be having lots of sediment loss or sediment gain for looking at a very particular shoal and still have a residual 0. All that residual is that's your accounting balance. That says, hey, you're good, you've accounted for all your sediment going into this cell. So that's our backhand check to make sure that we've accounted for all of our sediment sources. So we can break down sediment budgets into kind of 2 different areas. I like to group it as our data fidelity, so how fine our data is, how accurate our data is, as well as a spatial component. So going through our data fidelity, I break it down to 3 different types of sediment budgets. So our base layer is our conceptual budget. This is going to be produced very fast. Sometimes you can create one of these maybe a week of labor. This should be your foundation for any future efforts. It can be as simple as just drawing an ArcGIS or on the back of a napkin where your areas of interest are, where the sediment's going, and saying erosion, accretion. Simple as that. We can then add some values onto that, of course, using some of our existing data, looking at some of the literature review, some of the previously published work, whether that's in your district, or through ERDIC or academia, other federal partners. USGS does a lot of sediment budgets. And then from here, we can then build onto interim budget. So this is more refined than the conceptual. It's going to take some more work, but I like to call this our working budget. This is where we're pulling in more data sources. We're looking at dredging records, shoreline change, whether that is surveyed shoreline change, remotely sensed from satellite imagery. We're going to start incorporating maybe some models, GenCade, CMS, trying to figure out how much sediment's moving in our system. And then finally, we have our final operational budget. And this is going to be our most accurate. This can take years to develop. I myself am not an engineer, but I like to use an example. If you have your PE, this is where you put the stamp on it and say, "Yep, I'm putting everything in. This is our budget right here." It can be a series of budgets, and maybe you have a few regional budgets within your district. Maybe your district straddles 2 or 3 states. You have different budgets for each of those states, and you've pulled them into one. Or we're at the division level, and we're pulling in multiple different district budgets. And we're going to have multiple different data sets for this. We want to have the most accurate data possible. We might be looking at beach volume change from Java Tech's topographic surveys. We might have a university partner that's going out there that does annualized surveys. We may have a local government that also does surveys. We're going to consider all 3 of those. we're going to be looking at those because we might have one that was considered before and after hurricane. We might have one that is lower resolution. We want to combine all of these together to make sure we have the best, most accurate representation of our area of interest. Getting into the spatial extent of our sediment budgets, as I said, we have different ranges we can be looking at. I was talking earlier about, maybe we have one for our local government, one for just the district, the division. So this kind of shows you your various budget levels. So we might have a regional one where our littoral cells are on the order of kilometers long. And we can focus in on more localized budgets. So maybe we have a inlet of interest and we're only considering the maybe just the adjacent beach, one or two cells on each side of the inlet. And then we can even take that and kind of get a middle ground between our local and regional and combine the values of those cells into more of a macro budget. So you can have different varying spatial extents based on who your end user is or what project you're looking at or what your final message you want to deliver is. So providing the history. So now we're diving into, how did this work unit come about? So going all the way back to the 90s, Nick Krause and Julie Rosati had started to develop the sediment budget analysis system creation. So this was a standalone executable, Windows 95 and 98. And it's very, very simple. It's just a standalone exe file, open it up, draw your cells, put your values in. We pretty much made the step from just writing it in an Excel sheet and then adding that geospatial component to it. From there, we transitioned into ArcView, and this was kind of the first foray into the Esri suite of products. Again, incorporating that's geospatial software. So instead of it kind of being homegrown, we're now using some of the private industry data products. We are now able to create more refined maps. As anyone with experience with ArcGIS knows, it's very easy to make a map, very difficult to make a pretty map. If you've seen any of my maps, you would agree, yes, Sean, that is very difficult for you to do. But we're at least making those steps forward. Again, as our Esri suites tools begin to improve more, we also have to start making that jump. So in the 2010s, we transitioned to ArcMap. And then our latest iteration, as I briefly mentioned earlier, of SBAS 2020, that was that move from Arc Desktop to ArcGIS Pro. So if you think about 2018, 2019, that was when ArcGIS Pro started becoming more popular. And as of now, we don't use Arc Desktop anymore. There's only a few versions that still have support through next March, I believe. But we fully migrated now to ArcGIS Pro. Additionally, we've created the ArcGIS Online Hub. So again, this is another Esri product. And I'll show it in a few slides, but it's a nice online data repository for all of our sediment budgets to be in one area instead of spread out across multiple work units or locations. So here's just a quick screenshot of the sediment budget analysis system in its current state, so SBAS 2020. We can see here that this was for budget in Lake Ontario. You were able to go in and create your littoral cells, so you can just go ahead and draw them in. Same thing with your fluxes, or you can incorporate existing shape files. So maybe you had some existing work where you had to go in and draw them. You can pull those in. One of the big improvements with SBAS 2020 was the automatic importation of GenCade results, so we could get some volume change as well as some fluxes from the result of that tool. But that was the first one that we automatically pulled in. 2017, 2018, there's an effort by CHL to build the framework to automatically, not automatically, but a framework to start pulling in Java text volume change into sediment budgets, but it had been automated, such as the GenCade. And that was one of the big things. It's like, why are we only using one tool? GenCade's great, but there's many other tools that can help us out. We don't have anything that can pull in any shoaling rates. We're having to manually go in, type those. And that can be a lot on the user. Every time I talk to someone that's interested in SBAS, they get really excited. And then, as I start to show them, hey, you got to enter this stuff, the eyes glaze over, they're just very polite, I can tell that they're done. So I'm like, we got to make it easier. The harder it is for the user to use the tool, the more difficult it is to kind of lure them in. So that was a big thing right there, was to start pulling in some of these tools automatically. And then the SBAS Hub. So here we have our latest version of the SBAS Hub. This is an online repository. So no longer do we have, Bill's sediment budget that he made in 1990 sitting in his desk on the floppy drive. Well, we found Bill. We were able to find the floppy drive reader, and we were able to bring it into 2025. And we've now pulled it into our online repository. And we've been able to reach out to some of our contacts at districts, identify some of the previous published literature, and we've been able to get 43 budgets across the nation. A huge asterisk right there with our tiny little fonts, and this is a request again to anyone on the line from our West Coast. If you have any budgets, please pass them along. We would love to put them up on here. Any of these budgets are available to anyone. The general public can use it, so our federal partners can come and take this. We've actually hosted one of them that was developed by the USGS. We've digitized some academia published ones from Rutgers. And so the idea is we want this in one location, so that way we're not duplicating efforts. We're not having a loss of data, as a lot of districts are moving different offices. Something may get lost in that transition. We want to avoid that. So by having it in kind of one general location makes it a bit easier, as well as it allows people to know what exists in that area. I will pull this data up all the time, zoom in into one of these orange hotspots, and the budget will display right there on the screen, and I can get an idea on the phone if I'm talking with one of my stakeholders. Hey, here's what that area looks like right now. So we have a little Christmas tree right here, a little bit of, lights here and there. I want the entire nation covered inevitably. It's going to take a little bit of time. It's going to take some help from everyone, but I believe that's a very doable goal. So we're talking vision right here. We kind of laid the groundwork. Let's talk about what created this work unit. So as I've shown, and everyone who's seen the previous slides, this is your call back, wake up. We are now going to get into the meat and bones, the fun part of what we've been up to. Sediment budgets, as we all know, they're important for any coastal engineering project. Whether we're getting background information, we want to look at impacts of these proposed projects on our system, but they can take time. Both from the data analysis, collecting any existing data, and then pulling it into SBAS as well. So if you have, results from your tool, all our use-case tools are in different file formats, different structures. If you're, don't use a lot of the model results, so I always have to ask, hey, how do I pull this in, or what is this file? And it just causes a lot of headaches. I pull my hair all the time. Don't have a lot of hair right now because I just got a haircut, but you get the point with this. We want to make this easier. So we said, hey, let's go ahead, let's add some more tools and capabilities to SBAS. And this was two statements of need that were proposed that kind of helped guide us with this. So the big one that was asked for both these was the core filling analysis tool, or CSAT. But that was kind of our starting part. So as I said, this created a vision, and as I was thinking of SBAS as a whole, something that kept popping in my mind was the band Daft Punk. If you're not familiar with Daft Punk, they were a big electronic duo from France, popular about 20 years ago, and they had a very popular song. So everyone that's heard them knows, all right, I know where Sean's going with this, but it was called Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger. And that's all the song keeps reiterating. And that's been my mentality with SBAS, except the harder part. We're going to call that easier. I don't want to make SBAS harder. I want to make it easier. I want to make easier data importation. I want to have better sediment budget quality because we made our data easier to pull in. We're also going to be making it faster because we're pulling in our data automatically. And then we're going to have stronger downstream products. So when we're using our sediment budgets for any planned or proposed coastal work, we want to have better sediment budgets so that we can have stronger products at the end. So one of the first things that we've done already, and Rose has been leading the charge on this, is we want to streamline SBAS. So on the left, this is what SBAS 2020 looks like. You know, we have 8 tools. 8 tools. That's not 8 tools. That is, you know, we got A, B, C on a lot of these tools. And it's, you know, I catch myself sometimes having to think like, okay, which do I want B or do I want D? Since, you know, where are we at? Now, let's go ahead and streamline that. So the first thing we've done, we brought this down into 4. So we'll put a little close around because we got some A's, B's, and C's there. But we brought it down to 4 tools. So for example, we have our ERDIC dataset tools, and this is going to pull in any of our use-based developed tools. So we have a quick little preview right there of what that now looks like. And we can see GenCade. So we've taken GenCade, which had 2, 3 tools previously. It's just got 1 now. You press play once and you're done. You don't have to go back and do the second time. We've also identified CSAT as a set from the statements of need, as well as our Java text volume change toolbox as our 2. And then, as well as we've developed some internal calculators. Julie Rosati developed a sediment budget calculator about 12 years ago. We brought that back. That was, I think, in C++. It's been written into Python now. But we've highlighted these 3 sets of tools that we want to automatically pull into SBAS. We want our user to say, hey, I've already ran this tool. I just want to be able to click and choose where it's located. So the first one we worked with was CSAT. This was the big ask with the statement of need. So Rose has gone in. She produced 2 little videos I'm going to show here to play as I'm discussing, show just how easy it is, because we all know how live demos work, especially on the internet. So Rose goes ahead. She's picked out CSAT as her tool. She goes to her local computer to find where the data results from our CSAT input is. And then she's going to go ahead and select if she would like any littoral cells that exist. So if she wants to, she's already created littoral cells, she wants to pull this data in, she can say so. If not, she can create new littoral cells from this tool itself. So it's going in, it's going to take there's an Excel file that has the longitude and latitudes of our survey points. And it's going to then take all those points, find that average volume, and it's going to pull it in to our SBAS database. So in the example she ran, we got truncated. We're not going to sit here for 4 minutes and twiddle our thumbs as we watch a little bar go back and forth. But 78,000 points were done in about 4 minutes, so it's pretty quick. One of the things, you can press play real quick, go fill up your cup of coffee, and then by the time you come back, it will be in and ready for analysis. So again, we look here now, and so Rose, she's pulled in this data, and we're looking at our littoral cell attribute table right now, and these are right here are the results of the CSAT. So she didn't draw any of those cells. This is pulled in from them, and we can see how our delta volume has been updated. Our residuals and our delta volumes are the same currently because we haven't added any dredging volumes. And all it's doing is it's taking all those points and going and doing a zonal intersect and doing a sum of those total volume changes to get that entire data set. So one consideration when we're talking, some districts on the line, they know that their reaches may be multiple miles long, and it's way out. The one first ones I'm thinking of is the Atlantic Channel from the Norfolk district. So that's very long reaches, not too close to shore. We might not want to be pulling from all that reach. So again, this tool has the option to say, hey, I have my littoral cell here. It's only 100 meters. Just give me the volume change in this 100 by 100 meters. I don't need the 100 by 4 or 5 kilometers. So it allows the user to have a little bit of say in what the results are shown. So we've got the CSAT results imported, put a big old check on that. And the next ones that we got that we're currently working on is our calculators and our Java text volume change toolbox. So the calculators, we've got those written in Python already. To go from Python to ArcPy, it's not too difficult of a coding. If you're familiar with any of those environments, it's just a lobby instead of print becomes arcpy.addMessage. So it's not too difficult to do that. For the Java text volume change toolbox, we're going to follow a similar framework as CSAT. So if you're familiar with the Java text volume change, a lot of the results are put out into kilometer littoral boxes. So you can see that on the bottom right under the S. There's some of our littoral boxes right there. Because the user is going to have different varying sizes, we're going to be pulling some of the Java text change maps. We're going to be doing some clipping and some spatial zonal statistics to be able to get inside our littoral cell the exact change rates. So once we got these three check marks, we got one of our three check marks, excuse me. Once we get those other two, we will then be able to release our user guide. For those who have used SBAS before, it's not going to be that much of a change. We'll probably have like a little bit, hey, if you're new, if you're an existing user, like here's your little cliff notes. Make it quick and easy. CIRP wiki page, which is the living version of our user guide, that'll be updated. Our tutorial videos that are hosted on the CIRP webpage, we will have those updated, and we would like to do a open training workshop for our district users, targeting maybe Coastal Worker 2026. Don't want to put anything in stone just because of all the ongoing travel, we'll just call it that. I would prefer for this to be an in-person, just as everyone on the phone calls knows how technology remotely can go. We'd rather have the SBAS team, all 10 of us there walking around, be able to help you just like any training, make it super efficient for you guys. That way everyone walks away very happy and excited and wanting to use SBAS in their projects. So wrapping this up, because we're coming up on the half-hour mark. As I've said, SBAS has got a long history with USACE as well as growing over the years, evolving with the technology changes. The teams have been great with identifying where we can push it further. So we want to keep that going. The districts, we've heard you guys express concerns with not being able to pull in data, and we 100% agree with you. So being able to automatically import that data instead of manually typing it in, making it a lot more streamlined to help you guys. And wrap up this FY, as I said, doing that easier, better, faster, stronger mentality. So I'll go ahead, going to take a sip of my water and open up for questions on that.